How would you like a 15% discount to my daily email, the stack of stuff, the show notes, discounts to the conference, all of that? All you need to do is text the word show to 33777. You'll get the annual subscription with a 15% discount to my daily email. You'll get the stack of stuff, the links to the show notes, discounts to the conference, and so much more. All you have to do is text the word show, SHOW, to 33777. Text show to 33777.
Welcome to the Eric Erickson Show podcast, Hour 3.
Hello, America. Welcome. It is Eric Erickson here across the United States. The phone number is 877-973-7425. Should you wish to be on the program? We had someone very angry call my call screener to say I needed to correct the record that my Rinnai water heater does not work when the power goes off, and he would be wrong. Why? Because the thing is so power efficient that I've got a little UPS, the little black box you get it at Walmart. It's like a giant battery. And I've got my water heater because the gas guy told me when he installed it to do this, that you plug it into that thing. When the power goes out, it's so power efficient that it barely sips power and you can keep your hot water going. And we do, and it works. So you're wrong and I'm right. And stop calling and telling my call screener to correct myself on something I'm right about. Now, we have to move on to something else. By the way, you should also know, because some people are upset with me dismissing the prevailing wisdom on Gavin Newsom. Yeah, the mayor of Atlanta is black, and he was talking to the black mayor of Atlanta, but he was clearly talking to the crowd that I'm like you, I have a 980 on my SAT. And you should know he's used that line more than a dozen times to show people that he's relatable and somehow. I'm dumb like you. I got a 980 on the SAT. So relatable to the middle class. You poors, I'm just like you. My mother struggled as well because my father was so absent running the Getty oil fortune. Good Lord, the man. He's not as relatable. And you see, this is the thing with progressives is they look at a guy like that like, oh, he's so relatable. This is the man who was eating at fine dining establishments when he had shut down his whole state, and the poors were getting arrested for walking alone on the beach, and he was at the French Laundry with his wife, unmasked, celebrating with friends. We have to talk about something else now, though. We got to talk about Austin Tucker Martin. He is an alleged, and I you got to listen to me here, 21-year-old from North Carolina. I was advised this morning the odds are that some of his family listen to my program where they are from. His family is very strongly supportive of Donald Trump. Austin Tucker Martin is from Cameron, North Carolina. Over the weekend, he was shot and killed by the Secret Service for attempting to enter Mar-a-Lago with a weapon. He had an artwork company that specialized in drawings of golf courses. And he decided to go to Mar-a-Lago with a can of gasoline and a shotgun. Advised by the Secret Service to put down the weapons, he put down the can of gasoline, aimed the shotgun, and was killed by the Secret Service. The President of the United States was not at Mar-a-Lago at the time. Now, let me be real honest with you. That's the details of the story. It's the details of the story, and there's really not a whole lot more to add to that. But I want to spend some time here because of patterns and something that caught my eye from TMZ. Not a regular reader of TMZ. If you read the New York Times, this doesn't come up. In the New York Times, they do a profile of the guy and his background. He's from a rural part of North Carolina. It's a part I dearly love. I've got a lot of, in fact, the very first station that ever picked me up outside of Georgia was WEB in Southern Pines, North Carolina. And Cameron, North Carolina, is in the listening area. It is north of Southern Pines. If you're familiar with that area, you're familiar with Pinehurst. Southern Pines and Pinehurst kind of blend together. I got to get back up there and play golf at some point. And his family were big Trump supporters. And it's a notable distinctive that his family are very, very supportive of Donald Trump. And in fact, people who went to school with him, he went to high school and local community college, and the people that the New York Times interviewed said he seemed to be a Trump supporter. He was pretty conservative, that politics come up as they do sometimes in conversations, and he seemed to be supportive. Clarence Bonilla, 21, was an officer in the Junior Reserve Officer Training Corps, said he's from a very pro-Trump family and fit into that narrative, but he wouldn't go out of his way to bash anybody from the left side or start arguments or anything like that. He had his opinion, but he mostly kept to himself. His classmates described him as a smart student who was kind, helpful, and talkative around his trusted group of friends. Ms. Bonilla of Boone, North Carolina, said she remembered that sometimes he was depressed and anxious. She said his friends often tried to lift his spirits. Ms. Bonilla said she was shocked to learn about his fatal encounter at Mar-a-Lago. It seemed out of character for him. Another friend, Dustin Rollins, 20, of Fayetteville, said Mr. Martin was probably one of the kinder souls that I've ever actually met. He had dreams of joining the Air Force, hoping to combine his interest in planes, engineering, and mechanics. He joined the junior ROTC program to help with his prospects. He was turned away from the Air Force. In 2023, devastated by the death of his sister, Caitlin Renee Martin. She was 21, killed in a car wreck. He was very close to his family, especially his brother and sister, and became very reclusive after Caitlin's death. There are 3 children. That family now has 1 living child. Their daughter killed in a car wreck. Their son shot and killed by the Secret Service for what appeared to be an attempted assassination of the President of the United States. And I want to say, I don't know that that's what he was there to do. Sure looks like it. Here's the detail from TMZ. According to people close to Austin Tucker Martin, in the last couple of years, he began to obsess about, oh, come on, you know, just the way I'm saying it, you know, he began to obsess about the Epstein files. That's right. Austin Tucker Martin was from a conservative family, from a conservative part of the state, who himself seemed to be conservative, from a family that supported the president. He became reclusive, had bouts of depression, and became obsessed with the Jeffrey Epstein case. And on Saturday, climbed in his car and drove all the way to Mar-a-Lago, nonstop from North Carolina. And about the time the Secret Service was yelling at him to put his weapons down, his family was calling the local police to file a missing persons report because he had disappeared, which was unlike him. His car was gone and no one could find him. And before his parents got off the phone with the police, he was dead at Mar-a-Lago in Palm Beach, Florida. Why? The why is the hard part in situations like this. But it follows a pattern, doesn't it? He's a young white man who struggled with depression and spent way too much time online. He got obsessed with a conspiracy theory and decided he needed to take action. If you can't recognize the pattern here, that's on you, not me, but this pattern is cropping up more and more these days. Young men, mostly white, isolated, going online, getting fixated on a conspiracy theory, and taking action. In this case, the young man is dead. And in so many of the cases, nobody saw it coming. The shooter in Butler, Pennsylvania, there have been elaborate conspiracy theories about that guy. And by the way, the conspiracy theories are starting about Austin Martin as well. In fact, the prevailing conspiracy theory on social media is that he was going through a gender transition. That's it. There's no evidence for it. It's not out there in the public. No one's brought it up, but it had to be. It fits the pattern. One of the things that makes me so mad about the Candace Owens nonsense with Charlie Kirk is that Charlie Kirk, we know who murdered him. That guy turned himself in. He was a progressive who believed in trans values, who was dating a dude who was transitioning to be female, and thought that Charlie Kirk was hostile to the trans community and needed to be stopped. And Candace Owens and Tucker Carlson and others have seemingly suggested the Jews are somehow involved. Candace Owens in particular has spun this up into the Jews are behind the death of Charlie Kirk, and his wife was possibly involved in it. It's just sick and demented, demonic stuff from Candace Owens. Her final day will be before the throne, and she will have much to answer for. How she has treated that poor family after that guy's death is just disgusting. But there are people who have embraced it online because they need to be entertained. And what's a similar pattern with these people? A lot of them are young loner men who have no social life, no dating skills, and they're online. It's like the Nick Fuentes crowd, by and large. The Nick Fuentes crowd very often are lonely young men who are socially ill at ease in crowds and not very good with women. And they get their giggles from Nick Fuentes, and they find in him a kindred spirit, and they are just not quite socially adept. And they believe he is their friend, and they go off down the rabbit holes with him. I don't know anything about Austin Tucker Martin other than what I've read, but he sounds like he fit the bill of some young man who lived an isolated existence, bouts of depression, went online, got into the Jeffrey Epstein files, and went down rabbit holes to his death. Now, I have a 17-year-old son, and I pay attention to these stories because I'm always mindful of the fact that there, but by the grace of God, go I with my family. And I keep seeing these patterns, and I have had these conversations with my son and also my daughter, by the way, that you need to avoid going down the conspiracy theory rabbit holes. You need to have friends. You need to have people you socialize with. We are not meant to be alone. You get on the internet, that's where the devil finds you, and the devil leads you down the rabbit hole. I can't tell you, since my kids were little, I have told them the devil's in the internet. Now, my kids are believers. They go to church. I think they got good prayer lives. I hope they do. And I have been very serious with them that the devil is on the internet, and he will find you there. And you may laugh at that, scoff at that. You may not be believers. I know my kids are, and so they understand what I mean there. And if you don't understand what I mean, your vices and your mental hangups are going to find you on the internet. Whether you have a porn addiction, a drug addiction, you are into conspiracy theories, you are a prideful know-it-all who you got to go find the real truth about stuff, you're going to get trapped on the internet by your brain, by the devil himself. And it sounds very much, based on what I have read, that Austin Tucker Martin found the devil online, who lured him off down the rabbit hole of the Epstein files. My point is that this kid is dead and is going to be labeled an attempted assassin of the President of the United States. And if you understand what was luring him down to Mar-a-Lago, it probably was he suspected he was going in search of truth. Not there to kill a president. He was there in search of truth and armed up to make sure he could go get the truth, which is insane, which means this kid was dealing with issues, and he's dead now. And this is happening maybe not to this extent of attempting to assassinate a president or to break into a president's house to find the truth about Jeffrey Epstein or God knows what. but it's happening to more and more young men, but not just young men, young women too, but more and more of them. They are going online. They do not do community. They do not have relationships. They exist entirely online, and the devil finds them there because it's so much easier to find them there than anywhere else. Guys, let's talk about life insurance for a moment. If you're married, you got kids, you probably want to start thinking about life insurance. Where do you go? How do you get it? And did you know if you receive life insurance through your job and you're laid off, you suddenly could be covered with nothing? These are the things you got to start thinking about as you start growing up. I had to think about them. You got to think about them. So think about them with SelectQuote. Head to SelectQuote.com and a licensed insurance agent will call you right away with the right policy for your life and your budget. Don't have a medical exam? Don't want a medical exam? No problem. They partner with providers offering same-day coverage up to $2 million without needing to visit your doctor. And unlike other one-size-fits-all insurance companies, SelectQuote's licensed agents, they work with you. In as little as 15 minutes, they can compare policies from top-rated carriers and get what you and your family need. So go to SelectQuote.com and get a licensed insurance agent to help you. In fact, SelectQuote.com/Eric. SelectQuote.com/ERICK. SelectQuote.com/Eric. I haven't even gotten to the situation in Mexico. It's a failed narco state. They've killed one of the cartel leaders down there, and now they've taken over Puerto Vallarta. But I want to read you this tweet. Many Canadians, especially members of the 2S LGBTQIA+ community, are in Puerto Vallarta, where violence has quickly escalated. A shelter-in-place order is in effect. Please stay vigilant and consult the Government of Canada travel advisories. The Canadians have moved so quickly from just LGBTQ, LGB to LGBT to LGBTQ to LGBTQ plus to 2S LGBTIQIA+. Why not just go on and put all the letters? Because they keep adding letters. They're about to start making up letters of the alphabet just to be able to fit them all in with the alphabet gang. They couldn't just say, when you say 2SLGBTQIA+, doesn't that mean Canadian to begin with? I mean, you could have just said Canadians and actually spelled it out easier instead of adding 2SLGBTQIA+. Just say Canadians. We'll know what you mean. Did you see them on the hockey field, on the ice? My goodness gracious. The Canadians are not having a normal moment this weekend after losing to the Americans, and now they're upset with us for rubbing it in. You know they would have rubbed it in. They just don't like losing to us. Us beating them, it's like, I don't know, giving a swirly to your little brother. Them losing to us, it's like the end of the world for them because we matter to them to us, not so much. Now, I have to tell you about Vision Computer because they will matter to you. If you need a new computer, you should go to Vision Computers because they can build you a new computer. Y'all, I'm going to have to cut up the audio and play it for you. We had a lady call us last week overnight. It's like 1 o'clock in the morning. She was so amazed. She called Vision. She was not a customer. And she called them begging them to help her with her computer. And they helped her with her computer. And they saved a massive project for her. And she called them back the next business day and signed up with them because she said her project was so precious, they were able to save it for her just by helping her over the phone. That's the sort of customer service they gave her. She wasn't even a customer. Now she's a customer there, says she will be for life. You can be too, 404-COMPUTE or visioncomputers.com. They'll build you computers, but they can also do your managed IT service. Like this lady who called, she needed their managed IT service. 1 o'clock in the morning, a human being answered the phone and saved her something that her company had spent a lot of time on, and she thought it was wiped out on her laptop, and it was saved. I got to find the audio. It was incredible. 404-COMPUTE, visioncomputers.com. They can do it for you as well. That's who they are. 404-COMPUTE, visioncomputers.com. Hello there. Welcome. It is Eric Erickson here, and the phone number is 877-973-7425. Should you wish to be on the program, I would be delighted to have you. Now, we have to talk about Mexico. I gotta say, I was a little bit surprised to see the news that the Mexicans had taken out a drug lord. So if you haven't heard, the security forces launched a massive operation to capture the top drug lord after the U.S. and Mexican intelligence agencies tracked down one of his girlfriends to a secluded love nest in a colonial town. If you don't keep up with Mexico, and I don't expect many of you do, you would not really know that Mexico is actually a failed narco-terror state. Outside of Mexico City and a few others, there are towns in Mexico that have had to form militias because there's no government to help them against the narco-terrorists and the cartels. Law and order is non-existent in many places. I have a friend who regularly goes to Mexico, and in Mexico, he's got to have security when he goes, and he's Mexican. He travels from the United States to Mexico and has to have a bodyguard with him. And I have some friends who got back the morning of the attack on Puerto Vallarta. They were on a very early flight and were able to get out, and theirs was one of the very last flights out. So the Mexican cartels are now at war with Mexico. They've taken over Puerto Vallarta, and tourists are held up in their resorts. And if you aren't familiar with this, now, I have never been to Mexico. I don't like to go to places where I can't drink the water. The Daily Mail has a headline, "Spoiled Tourists Complain About Being Stuck at Luxury Resorts Amid Cartel Violence." If you want a sense of the spoiled tourists, they're stuck in resorts with gunfire all around them. They have no access to health care. They have no access to any food that's not already at the resort. They can't get out. The violence is encroaching the territory of the resorts. And it's a very destabilizing situation. These aren't spoiled tourists. These are scared people who can't leave where they are. And if they run out of medicine or food, there's nothing left. It is not a good situation. It's also not a good situation because the president of Mexico is weak on the issue. I won't play you the Spanish, but she essentially says that they can't go after the cartels because it would increase violence and lead towards fascism, that they have to go through a judiciary process in Mexico. They didn't go through the judiciary process in this case. They kind of gave it pro forma lip service. Let me go back to this Wall Street Journal story. A battle ensued chasing Nemesio Oseguera, the head of the Jalisco, what is it? It's spelled Jalisco in this country, but it's not pronounced that way. New Generation Cartel remained holed up after his girlfriend left. The soldiers chased Oseguera and several bodyguards, surrounding them deep in nearby woods. A battle ensued. His desperate bodyguards, armed with 2 rocket launchers, fired upon the pursuing troops. In the fighting, 8 people were killed, including the drug lord and 2 other bodyguards who were seriously wounded and then died in a military helicopter. Military intelligence services identified a man close to Oseguera's lover who took her to Tapalpa, a mountain weekend getaway community surrounded by pine forests. Mexican officials said U.S. intelligence helped the operation. More than 50 people died in the aftermath of the raid during the gang's counteroffensive. The death included 25 Mexican soldiers and security officers and 30 alleged gunmen. Civilians were caught in the crossfire, including a pregnant woman. U.S. Northern Command helped. Listen, here's the problem. The president of Mexico has been compromised by the cartels, Claudia Sheinbaum. She has targeted one cartel, but there are plenty of others. She happened to have targeted the most dangerous of the cartels, which is good, did it under American pressure with American help. But there's already ripe speculation in Mexico and the United States that he was expendable. The other cartels are not so much. He acquired a lot of power and was hurting the others. With him out of the way, the other cartels can rise again. And that there was some behind-the-scenes shenanigans on her part to allow this to happen in a way that restabilized other cartels. Mexico is a failed narco-terror state. Outside of Mexico City and several of the other large areas, it is not a safe place for people to go. It is not a safe place for Mexicans, and many of them were fleeing into this country until the President of the United States secured the border. We have a long way to go in restabilizing Mexico. Frankly, an argument can be made that Mexico is more dangerous to our national security interests than Iran, so maybe we should invade Mexico. I'm not recommending we invade Mexico, but there's an argument to be made that we could invade and restabilize this country and take it away from the narco-terrorists. Back to the Wall Street Journal report. The gang's response extended to 20 of Mexico's 32 states, where they put up 252 roadblocks, many of them on federal highways. Gunmen attacked military facilities in states as far as the Gulf state of Tamaulipas, a lawless underworld hub in the U.S.-Mexico border. Gunmen also attacked convenience stores, state-run bank branches, and gas stations. Airports were closed in several cities. And central Guanajuato state, a crucial Jalisco cartel territory for its vast fuel smuggling rackets, local authorities ordered the closing of schools and universities on Monday. All roadblocks were removed as of Monday and calm was restored. Mexican security forces detained more than 70 people. Air service to the beach resort town of Puerto Vallarta, hard hit by the roadblocks, will resume later today. Did you miss that part? 20 of the 32 Mexican states saw terror activity from one cartel. That's how pervasive it is around the country. 20 out of 32 states, 252 roadblocks, attacking military facilities and airports, among other things. U.S. Northern Command, by the way, deserves a lot of credit for what they did to help the Mexicans. If they want to take back their country, they're going to have to do more, though. If they want to take back their country, it's not going to be easy because the present president of Mexico and the former president of Mexico, AMLO, allowed the cartels to expand their reach. There's deep corruption in Mexico. It's a problem. You know, I had a conversation this morning with some local politicos where I live. I live in Middle Georgia. And they were telling me that in my county, among law enforcement, it is now well known. I'm in Bibb County, Georgia, middle of the state. In fact, the geographic center of the state is not far from where I live. And that it is becoming well known within law enforcement circles that our county is becoming a hub of organized crime activity related to drugs and elsewhere, in large part because we have a very incompetent Soros-style DA who has not been able to competently prosecute murder cases and has dropped a lot of cases. In fact, I was told, and again, extremely reliably by people who would know, that increasingly now state authorities will not arrest people who have committed crimes in my county. They wait for them to commit crimes in adjacent counties and arrest them there, and then back charge the crimes in my county because the local DA in my county is so incompetent and so bad that they're afraid that the criminals are going to get off. And in many cases, she won't prosecute. It's like having a Soros prosecutor, except she wasn't funded by Soros. She's just that bad. But the result is that organized crime, particularly drug trafficking, is setting up shop in my community. And a lot of it, by the way, is tied into the Mexican cartels. They're finding weak DAs in counties that don't take crime seriously around the country in the United States to set up shop. And the federal government can only do so much. Our local U.S. attorney here is doing everything he can And the sheriff is doing everything he can, but they are outmanned by a district attorney who the criminal element knows if they get arrested, the odds are their case is going to be dropped or mistried. So the Jalisco cartel, among others, is alleged to be operating in my community. And their number one guy is now dead. And that's a good thing. U.S. Northern Command participated. It's wild to me, though. I was not expecting to have this conversation this morning about the organized crime activities that are increasingly setting up shop in my county because our district attorney is so bad. I know someone who was telling me that one of their relatives was held at gunpoint with a gun to her head, and the district attorney failed to prosecute the guy who held the gun to her head. In another situation, a buddy of mine just texted me and said that a relative of his had someone pull up next to her at a stoplight and raise his gun and then followed her to her office near where I live. And because we have a weak district attorney who doesn't prosecute crime and is incompetent at the crimes being prosecuted, it's getting worse. We're becoming a hub in Middle Georgia where I live for these sorts of things, and we don't have a competent, aggressive local news outlet to be able to cover all the stories and tell the stories of how the DA is failing. And these Mexican cartels that have taken over Mexico, they're moving to communities like mine in the United States. And it is, but for Donald Trump, it would be so much worse. He closed the border that Joe Biden opened. He has aggressively gone after the drug cartels. So many of the people in my community who hate Donald Trump are safe because of what he did. They'll never give him the credit. But knowing what I now know about the community I live in and what's happening here under the shadows, or in the shadows, under the radar, away from people's sight, had Donald Trump not secured the border, it would be even more aggressively bad. As many faults as the president may have, him securing the border is a very good one, and him taking on the narco-terrorists is a very good one. Him destabilizing the narco-terrorists is a very good one. Him trying to kill the narco-terrorists is a very good one. And the more of them we kill, the better off we will be as a people. They are poisoning our citizens. They are profiting off our destruction. They are terrorizing the people of our communities and of their own country. That the U.S. Northern Command played such a vital role. Notice Pete Hegseth, he's not getting praised in the press. They don't like him. But it was his coordination with U.S. Northern Command that helped make this possible. They at least deserve credit. Listen, if Joe Biden had secured the border, I would give Joe Biden credit, but he didn't. And the Democrats lied about it and insisted it was secure. Now the border is secure, and we're rounding up a lot of illegal aliens. I wish Tom Homan would come to my neighborhood, come to my county, and start helping us, knowing what I know now about our crime and how our district attorney is turning a blind eye to it. Makes me feel unsafe in my own backyard, in my American community. It's not Mexico, but it's starting to operate like that if you talk to law enforcement. Something's got to be done. Something's got to give. It's going to take an aggressive federal presence and showing that the United States is willing to work with the Mexican intelligence and military to kill a terrible cartel leader. And the fact that that cartel could launch attacks in 23 of 30 Mexican states in response shows you just how bad the problem has gotten. And it will fester here, too, unless the president's policies of deportations are successful, which is why, though I have qualms with Kristi Noem and how she did it, I'm a big fan of Tom Homan, and I think he's working to make this country safer. And the sooner they can round up the illegal aliens in this country and get them out of here, the better off we will be. It's a sound policy, and we should look to what is happening in Mexico where they've allowed the cartels to fester and remind ourselves we do not want that here. This just in, Speaker of the House Mike Johnson has rejected the idea of using reconciliation to lock in Donald Trump's tariffs. He has privately advised the White House that the White House would probably lose up to 40% of the House Republican caucus if they attempted to ratify the tariffs. This is part of the problem, of course, with the GOP right now, is that publicly they are very unwilling to speak up about the tariffs, even though behind the scenes they think they're a terrible idea. The president has switched his endorsement of a candidate in Nebraska to someone less likely to win the general election because that incumbent decided to challenge the president and vote against the tariffs. And there are going to be real consequences. The president, by the way, let me just read you this quote so you know. This is what the president's Solicitor General told the United States Supreme Court about using Section 122 of the Trade Act for the 15% tariffs. Quote, nor does Section 122 have any obvious application here where the concerns the president identified in declaring an emergency arise from trade deficits, which are conceptually distinct from balance of payment deficits, which are required for tariffs under Section 122. As I was saying at the beginning of the program, if the president wishes to use Section 122 of the Trade Act, there's got to be a balance of payments deficit, but balance of payment deficits cannot exist right now except in very rare circumstances due to our monetary exchange policy right now. We don't have a Bretton Woods Accord style monetary policy now, which is when balance of payment deficits could occur. So the president's team has already conceded in the Supreme Court that his current way of doing tariffs can't work. And now Mike Johnson is saying behind the scenes, 40% minimum of the Republican conference is actually privately opposed to the tariffs. So this is where the situation descends now, with the president's team unable to ratify the tariffs through Congress, having to do it by fiat, using a section of a law they've already told the Supreme Court won't work. The Dow is down over 800 points. Let's see, has it recovered any now? Nope, it's still down over 800 points today, in large part because of not just the tariffs, but also some growing concerns about AI and its operations in this country and what it'll mean for businesses in the country. There's just a lot of uncertainty. I mean, this is the Wall Street Journal right now. Stocks have fallen sharply with a fresh round of jitters over trade and AI spooking investors. The Dow's down over 1.6%. With declines in American Express, Goldman Sachs, and J.P. Morgan. Trade-sensitive stocks have slumped over the weekend. The president's announcement of a 15% tariff has spun everything out of control. When will they learn? Probably never. All right, let me tell you about Old Glory Bank. They are my bank, and they can be your bank if you go to oldglorybank.com/Eric. oldglorybank.com/ERICK. Sign up with Old Glory Bank. And with Old Glory Bank, you, my friends, can get a bank that wants to do business with you, will protect your freedom and your privacy. They were started with all the rise of cancel culture in the country and realized they needed a bank to protect conservative interests. And now that Trump is president, they don't have to worry so much about that. But they're still committed to your freedom to bank. They're committed to your privacy. They're committed to your business. If you're a business, you can get great business accounts with Old Glory Bank. And though they're an online bank, they get to know your business. So if the time for lending ever comes, they're there for you. They've already made an effort to understand your business. If you're an individual, they've got great checking and savings accounts. I've got a no-fee checking, no-fee savings account. They have the premium interest-bearing accounts as well for checking accounts. If you're active duty military, they'll waive the fees on those. If you need a custodial account for your kids, they're great. You need a mortgage, they're great. You need CDs, they're great. oldglorybank.com/Eric. Go sign up with a member FDIC, equal housing lender. Terms and conditions apply.